We told you we had a lady from the Weather Channel, Heidi Cullen, who said that anybody out there in the meteorological world who did not believe in global warming and that it was caused by man should be decertified by the American Meteorological Society. Now, somebody who wrote a little op-ed piece on his blog was a gentleman who is well respected, not only in the meteorological community, but well known in Birmingham. Johnny B used to watch this guy.
I sure did.
James Spann, who's with the ABC affiliate in Birmingham. He's on the line with us. James, how are you?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I loved your rebuttal to Heidi Cullen that you folks who don't believe in all this man-made global warming stuff should be decertified.
Yeah, that's what started the whole thing. That was very troubling, and what she's saying is that if you don't agree with me, then you don't need to be certified. And the AMS thing, it's something you just can't drive through and get that. It involves your academic work, it involves your on-air work, your content, and a rigorous examination. And she's coming along and saying, if you don't agree with me, you shouldn't have that. And in turn, that eliminates your ability to work, and your voice is gone. And I believe in the world of science, there should be an open marketplace of ideas, and that was just very troubling, and that's what started the whole thing.
Well, let's talk about global warming. I mean, we've had, I think they said 1998 was the warmest year on record, and then they said 2005 was close behind. It seems to me if 2005 was cooler than 1998, there could be an argument made that we're actually cooling since 1998, but we're going through weather patterns that are just completely unpredictable, are we not?
Right, and I understand. There's no doubt the Earth has been warmer in the last 10 to 20 years. Everybody agrees with that. The argument is the cause of that.
Right.
And Dr. Cullen and that group, they believe that this is it's caused by man and CO2 emissions, and it will be catastrophic, and it will be, worldwide chaos. And those in our camp believe that this is a natural process. In our minds, if you do an in-depth study of the Earth's weather between about 1910 and 1945, there was global warming during that period.
Right.
And we don't see any real difference in the global warming that we've had in the last 10 to 20 years compared to that period. I firmly believe that there's no doubt CO2 emissions are higher, and I do believe we should work to reduce them. In my opinion, the CO2 emissions are just a little pop gun to the climate when you compare that with volcanic eruptions, the volcanic dust in the stratosphere. That has a massive effect on the Earth's weather or climate. Magnetic field changes in the Earth's poles, the condition of the sun, and understand that there's a solar cycle, and changes in ocean currents. All of those things are the big picture items that really make a big change in this. I think that we'll begin to see a cooling trend within 5 years, and that will probably settle all of this, and a lot of this will move on to something else. But until that cooling trend is clear, I think a lot of this political rhetoric will just keep on going on here.
Yeah, but they got a word for that too, or at least a phrase for that. Then they call that climate change. So when we get cooler, they well, you see, we told you it was going to be climate. But there's always climate change, isn't there?
Right. From the day that God put this planet here, we've had climate change. That's the one thing that is true. The climate has always changed, and the climate of the Earth will always change. In fact, there have been multiple periods of glaciation in geologic history. We've had, I think, 7 periods of glacier coverage in the last million years, according to a lot of the researchers. And understand, we're coming out of a little ice age here. If you look at a really long term, we've had global warming for a long time. So, again, I don't know. And the other issue, too, Phil, our good weather records go back to about 1880. And you compare that little snippet of data we have compared to the length of time this planet's been here, that's nothing. And trying to prove this long-term, man-made, catastrophic global climate change with a snippet of data is very hard to do, in my opinion.
Well, that's exactly what I've been saying. I mean, if you're a scientist out there, you have to look at this and say insufficient data. We can't come to any kind of conclusion because we don't have enough data.
That's correct. And one of the encouraging things I see, the incoming president of the American Meteorological Society, Richard Anthes, he has written in his opening letter to the society, which I'm a member, and Dr. Cullen is a member, he is proposing, the first time ever, an external review of the AMS. And this will help to formulate their policy statements and also Clearly, he's indicating this will allow researchers to freely express themselves on scientific matters without any threat of intimidation. And I think we've had this threat, Phil, and a lot of people talk about consensus on this, and I think the consensus has been in the media. They have accepted that man-made catastrophic global warming is a done deal, and we're moving on to something else. And every story we report, there's no other side. And again, I'm no journalist. I know nothing about it, but I thought one of the basic premises of that was that you allow both sides to share their story. And I think that's not been the case for a while, and I think that's why some people just think it to be true. They haven't heard the other side. And hopefully this little ruckus that's stirred up here will lead to an increased voice for those that stand against what Dr. Cullen believes. And I will fight to defend her right to say what she believes. And I love to read. I love to read papers from those in that camp. That's the only way you'll learn is to read material. I've read it on both sides, and I've come to the conclusion that this is more of a natural process.
Now, you've probably heard about this hockey stick graph they said that proves the Earth has experienced a steady, very gradual temperature increase for 1,000 years, then recently began a sudden increase. And I was looking at, so this is from Friends of Science, and they say the fact is significant changes in climate have continually occurred throughout the geological time. For instance, the medieval warm period from around 1000 to 1200 AD, when the Vikings farmed on Greenland, was followed by a period known as the Little Ice Age. And since the end of the 17th century, the average global temperature has been rising at the low, steady rate, although from 1940 to 1970, temperatures actually dropped, leading to a global cooling scare. And I remember, I believe it was either a U.S. News and World Report or a Newsweek article back in the mid to late 70s that talked about the oncoming global cooling, and it was being caused by human activity and what we needed to do to offset that. Now the same people have turned around and said, oh, it's global warming.
Right. And let me say this, too. I think this is an important point. A lot of these dire, catastrophic predictions, Phil, are based on computer models, which takes in a volume of data, uses algorithms in physics, and comes out with projections of what the state of the Earth's atmosphere will be.
See, I knew Al Gore had something to do with it.
Yeah, right. And we use those in what I do. What we do in operational meteorology, we take those models and we use them out to 16 days and come up with a public weather forecast. And I think why so many of us in this end of the business, in the operational end, have a problem with that, we know how bad those models can be. I mean, everybody has watched a television meteorologist make a fool of himself with a horrible forecast just one day later, and he was dead wrong. You can have temperatures 15, 20 degrees off. You can have snow or ice when it was not supposed to happen. And I guess we see how bad the models can be in a 7 to 16-day time frame. How bad can they be 50 to 100 years from now?
Right. That's why they can't even predict what's going to happen in the next 3 months. How they're going to predict what's going to happen in 100 years from now. But on your blog, though, which people can go to at James Spann, SPANN.com, where you have a daily blog where you talk about weather in Alabama and all sorts of weather-related issues. Nobody, though, and I've offered money for this, if somebody can point out to me a distinctive link between human activity and any kind of a climate change, and they just can't. This is all theory out there, but now it's so frustrating from somebody from your standpoint where they're stating this is fact. You had said in your blog from last week that you know a lot of people in the weather business, and you don't know anybody who buys into this man-made global warming garbage.
Right, and I'm talking television meteorologist, and I know I've been doing this for so long. People all over the country, and even since this erupted last week, I've heard from other meteorologists that I did not know in markets like San Francisco and New York that are on this side. I know there's somebody out there, but I just don't know who it is. I mean, it's interesting to note that in 2006, 60 climatologists sent an open letter to the Prime Minister in Canada, Stephen Harper, saying that operational evidence does not support today's climate models. And there's little reason, in fact, no reason to trust model predictions of the future. And we're starting to see more and more in that, and I think that voice needs to be heard as well. And I'm hoping that I can speak with Dr. Cullen at some point and have an open debate. I welcome her opinion. I would love to hear what she has to say. But she has not been around. We have learned that she was at Sundance at the film festival this past weekend.
Yeah.
She apparently is starring in a movie that promotes man-made catastrophic global warming.
Interesting. All right.
Called Everything's Cool.
James, appreciate it very much. James Spann is jamesspann.com if you want to check out his blog. Appreciate you being with us, my
Okay,
friend.
Phil, have a great day. Thank you very
too.
much.